Welcome to Sound and Vision, conversations with contemporary artists and musicians about the creative process. Here's the host of Sound and Vision, Brian Alfred.
Sound and Vision is supported by Golden Artist Colors. Golden is a company based in upstate New York and is committed to making the best artist materials for artists to make work with. You can get it in just about every art store and online at goldenpaints.com. If you would like to support this podcast, visit patreon.com/soundandvisionpodcast. When you make a donation, you can have your name mentioned on a future podcast and even get a hand-drawn thank you, like our first Patreon patron, Samantha. Thank you so much. Sound and Vision is made possible by listeners like you. Taylor Anton White is an artist born in 1978. His work has been shown in Future Ruins, a group show at the California Institute of Arts in Valencia, California. He's shown at Deli Gallery in Brooklyn and has had solo exhibitions with galleries including Gallery Cremens in Berlin, LC Gallery in Brussels, Marquee Projects in Bellport, New York, TW Fine Art in Brisbane, Australia, and a solo show at Lady Volkas Art Center in Kansas City, Missouri. His current show just opened at Monica King Contemporary in Tribeca called Hot Dog PDF. His work has been covered in Daily Collector, Abstract Mag, New American Paintings, Art QA Magazine, and more. He received his BA in Studio Art from the University of Mary Washington in Fredericksburg, and he currently lives and works in Richmond, Virginia. Taylor stopped by while in town, opening up his show at Monica King. Here's our conversation.
Yeah. Or talking to people at shows is difficult too, because you've got people you're friends with, and then you've got like the galleries, like you need to talk to this person, and so you got to kind of balance that, and you feel like you never really have a good conversation with anybody at an opening.
No, it's like it really feels like you're spinning in circles.
Yeah,
and sometimes like if it's well attended, you'll be talking to someone, and then you turn, and you can see people waiting.
Yeah.
So you'll turn 45 degrees, and then you have another conversation. Then you turn 45 the other way, and it's another one. And It's hard to have an organic conversation, and it's hard to see the work.
It is. Yeah. I generally don't go to openings. I generally love to see. I mean, that's cool to see like a big crowd at it or whatever. Or see other artists that are at the opening that you're friends with.
Yeah.
And stuff, but I prefer to go in there when there's nobody there.
Totally.
It's just totally empty. So
I imagine if you polled, artists,
probably they're all like that.
There's maybe the 10% of the social butterflies who just love rubbing elbows or whatever, but everyone else is like, yeah, I could just go without doing that.
Yeah.
Necessary evil.
Yeah.
But you're on the verge.
Yeah.
You've got an opening coming up.
Yeah,
momentarily.
Tonight. Yeah, tonight. Yeah. So
by the time this airs, the show will be open. But are you excited? I imagine you're not based in New York, so it must be kind of cool to just hear from a lot of people that are outside the community. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm up here on a fairly regular basis. I did a residency up here in 2018
in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, in Brooklyn. Yeah. And that was really fun, and I got to meet a lot of artists that I'd talk to on Instagram or whatever,
right.
And we started visiting each other's studios and stuff, and it was a good way for me to also to see like kind of if I thought that working in New York would be right for me, if it was a good fit for me and my personality and whatnot, and I don't believe it is. I think I really like kind of being an outsider and approaching the whole thing from like an oblique angle maybe or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I like that.
Well, I mean, it's, if you think about it, like that quote unquote outsider, it's like your studio's just a little bit further. You're still coming into town.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
The thing is like when you're here all the time, I mean, I say this all the time about going to see shows and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's just always around, so you don't feel you need to constantly be doing studio visits or going to see stuff because it's there.
Yeah.
But if you're coming in from out, like I have a lot of friends who live upstate or in Pennsylvania who, when they come in, they see everything, they meet people, and that they're very sort of organized about it, and it's almost more effective that way because they can be efficient. They come in, they see everything, talk to some people, go back, make the work. It's not that different.
Well, totally, yeah. And like living in Richmond, I have, it's so much cheaper, so I can get, a way more badass studio. You can get like this huge space, and that kind of the financial pressure to sell your work and all that stuff isn't quite as high as it is here. If you're only doing this, you got to like, okay, how am I going to make some money?
Yeah. Right.
So Richmond is I don't know, it's the right speed for me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you grew up near, where did you grow up?
No, I kind of grew up in, primarily I grew up in North Carolina. But I was born in San Diego, and then I lived in Colorado for a little bit when I was a kid, and then, but primarily I grew up in North Carolina.
Military parents?
My dad was in the Navy in San Diego, and then when he got out of the Navy, then he went in to become a computer programmer. So, we moved around to where his job took him. Yeah. And then
was that a lot when you were when you moved from San Diego? How old were you?
Oh no, I was a baby when we left there. Okay. So no.
You didn't drop anchor.
No.
When you hear of someone who lived in San Diego and then moved, Navy comes to mind.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Are based there. I mean, San Diego's. I had a friend who grew up there, and it's just 350 sunny days a year, right?
Yeah.
I didn't really experience. Did you ever go back and spend time there?
Much later on, for work stuff. But, my wife's always like, quit telling people you're from San Diego. You were only there as a baby.
It's not like you're lying.
Am I supposed to lie about it? She's like, you didn't really grow up there. So, yeah.
So do you feel more Coloradian or what?
No, really. I mean, I guess North Carolina, really. I mean, I was there since I was in like third grade. So yeah. So all my childhood memories are of suburban North Carolina. Yeah.
So you feel Southern at heart.
I don't know.
North Carolina, I guess.
I guess so.
It can be.
Yeah.
It can be Southern, but it can be it can be the triangle.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of different people from all over the place there, but yeah, it's not like I don't know, Alabama.
Yeah, deep.
Yeah,
deep South.
Super deep South. Yeah.
There's great music in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, historically, music scene of people there. Were you into that growing up?
Yeah, I played in a band when I was a teenager, and like it was like a knockoff, like kind of, or not a knockoff, but like kind of cover band, or at least very derivative of like Minor Threat.
Oh, nice.
Those like punk rock, straight edge skateboard culture bands.
Yeah.
And so
Out of Step. I mean, I remember that album cover was huge. Remember when like CD covers were really important? Out of Step felt really important.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, so I did that, and primarily most of my time was spent skateboarding and drawing when I was a teenager.
Yeah. I think skateboarding for our generation was a huge.
Oh yeah.
It was just like, I don't know. That makes me sound old, but that the Bones Brigade and stuff like that. That was like culture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The stickers and the boards, and like it just felt fun.
I tried to get back into it recently.
Careful.
I know, dude. Yeah. I'm not.
I did.
Oh, dude.
You gotta be careful.
Yeah.
We don't heal up well like we used to.
Exactly. I fell a couple of times and I was like, nah, I'm good. Not for me, man. Not anymore. Because honestly, if I get like seriously injured doing that and I can't be in the studio, it's like the worst torture possible. Like I hate it.
Right.
I have to be in my studio working.
Yeah. I mean, and you can, that's a hand injury. I play soccer still to this day, but I feel like, well, if I get hurt, it's probably going to be in the lower quarters.
Yeah.
So I can still hobble to the studio. But yeah, I was skateboarding. My studio is only like 5 minutes away from where I live.
Okay.
And at some point, I got a skateboard.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, I could just skate over. Because I don't really bicycle in the city. I don't know. It freaks me out. But I was figuring, okay, I'll just skate over to the studio. It'll cut that commute down by a few minutes. And I was going one day, backpack, laptop in the back. And you know when you hit one of those tiny little pebbles and it makes that noise?
Yeah.
And I flipped over. The bag swung around. Laptop just took one in the corner. My hands were all dug up, and then the computer just wouldn't start. So I had to take it in. You know, it was just like,
Yeah.
not only did I like scuff up my hands and like hit my knee, but the computer died.
Yeah.
So it was like, I was like, okay, maybe this is retirement number 2.
Yeah, for sure.
Skateboarding.
Yeah.
But it's tempting, you know.
No, my kids are into it. So I skateboard with them in like the parking garage of our building.
Yeah.
But I just like ride around. I don't try to like even ollie or anything.
Right. Just keep it safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like a tiny pebble can do you in.
Yeah, no, I gotta take care of myself now. So
So you don't have a backyard?
no, not anymore. No, we lived in this town north of Richmond called Stafford about a year ago, and then we had a backyard and all that stuff there, but it was just a pretty boring town, and we just got really just kind of uninterested in it. There was no art there. There was no museums, and I was just kind of this guy making these weirdo paintings in the laundry room in my basement, and I was like, we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
So we moved to Richmond and got like a dedicated studio space there, and so yeah, I'm very happy there now.
That's cool. So you work? Are you close to where you work?
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
living space?
yeah. My I'm right now, and I'm in a temporary studio while this this brand new studio is being completed. Actually, by the time this comes out, this interview comes out, I'll be moved in. That's like next week we move. But that new studio is in this old school building that was built in like 1908.
Nice.
And it's this
tall ceilings, I imagine.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
And there's this great studio space, and then my apartment is just in a different part of the building.
Oh, perfect.
So I can just hop up the stairs in my socks.
You could do the late night thing.
Yeah. Make some decisions
when you have
really
kids,
quick.
You know, it's tough because you don't want to be too far
Mm-hmm.
in the night. I feel like at nighttime you want to be close. You know?
Yeah.
But you could do that little sneak out after they go to sleep and go do some more work.
Right. Yeah, I'm super impulsive with my work too. Like I'll have an idea that comes to me in the middle of the night or while I'm eating something, and I love to be able to put it down in like in 45 seconds I'm there like beginning it. And even sometimes just getting in my car to drive like a quarter of a mile or less than like a tenth of a mile to my studio is enough to like make you change your mind.
Yeah.
Or it's enough to like edit your thoughts. And sometimes that's a good thing, but I think overall I really like being kind of like on top of my work all the time.
It feels like it looks like the intensity is part of the process.
Yeah.
So I can imagine, dulling that would feel
right. Yeah.
Anticlimactic to doing what you do. What about like the stuff, like moving a studio for me?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I think for everyone, it's such a process,
Mm-hmm.
like it's unsettling in a way, but I'm guessing you have a lot of material stuff going on just because the work is so material based.
Yeah, I've been pretty good about keeping it organized, like where it's not just like piles of things everywhere.
Yeah,
like you see that a lot in artist studios, but like like I have a huge flat files, and this one is like full of these components that are made for this type of thing, and this one over here is full of drawings and like pieces of paper I found and half completed ideas and things like that. So and I haven't been in that studio for very long, this temporary one, so it's kind of half. It's not like really fully all that set up anyway, so I can break it down and move out really fast. Yeah,
like living out of suitcases basically.
Yeah, so it's like expeditionary studio space. Yeah.
Well, that's like what residencies are like too, right?
Yeah.
You never want to like totally drop anchor and settle in.
Right.
You're just gonna get up and move. There's something good about that too, though. I feel like it keeps you on your toes as far as like organized. But I love that idea of like work that's chaotic or kind of seemingly disparate elements like thrown together or something, and then the studio being pretty organized.
Yeah.
So the chaos can happen like in a spot.
I generally get to the studio each day, and no matter like how like wrecked it was like the night before when I left, like it'll be just, at the end of the day it'll be just like stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
And I generally get to the studio and I like reorganize the whole thing. I clean everything up and then start over again, even pulling the same things back out that I put away.
Right.
It's like this process that I've kind of go through every day.
Start from scratch.
Yeah, it's really satisfying to me.
What about each piece? Does it start from scratch, or does it start from idea, or does it start from like, well, I've got a stretcher that's 5 foot by 5 foot there, let's go with that? Or
it's kind of all over the place for me. Like in many cases, I challenge myself to not just go over to the giant, 10-foot roll of canvas in the corner and, cut off a piece of that and be like, I'm going to make a painting and put some paint on this or prime it, or any of that stuff. I generally first look around the room and try to convince myself that there's several really good paintings like in this room right now. Just find them, like find it, figure out how to assemble it. And like, that's a really fun challenge to me. And so I use this like, industrial sewing machine, and I sew all these kind of disparate things together, often. And then the next kind of challenge in that process is to kind of convince myself that all of this information that could just be a painting like that, is to try to convince myself that that's blank.
Yeah.
Right.
And
and then make make these kind of decisions over the top of it, or to subvert it, or to kind of deface it, or to treat it with total like dismissiveness. Yeah. And a lot of that happens before a stretcher is even prepared for it.
Right.
Yeah. And then
where did the sewing thing come from? Like, when did you start to gain experience doing that?
Yeah. So when that started, I was gluing paintings together. Like, imagine two big modules of a painting, placed like face down on the ground, and like using another piece of canvas on the back with like really heavy duty adhesive at like kind of like a giant Band-Aid. Mm-hmm. And that's crazy strong if you use the right adhesives. Yeah. But I work really fast. I like kind of velocity and kind of like this feeling of almost like kind of panic. Yeah. Like this thing was kind of panicked together. Right. I like that feeling, or it's a very satisfying kind of experience to make a painting like that for me. And that at the same time as I was doing that, my daughter, at the time she was like 9 or 10, I think she was like 10, but anyway, we got her a sewing machine because she wanted to like learn how to sew her own stuffed animals. Yeah. And a lot of their interests at that age are just like, weeks long sometimes, or a month long, or, they play with it for a little while and then they're like, I'm done with this. And they pick it up a year later. But, so we had this, like $75 like Walmart plastic sewing machine, like a Singer machine in our house. And I was looking at it and I just started testing things on it. Like, what will this thing like go through? And I didn't know how to use one at all. And so I, kind of taught myself how to use it.
Did you start by using like scraps of canvas or clothes? And
stuff?
Just
just like throw away scraps of material. Yeah. I'm like, will it go through gessoed canvas? Okay, now will it go through gessoed canvas and paper and cardboard and like all of that all together at the same time? Like what's the limit of the machine?
Did you break a lot of needles?
Oh yeah, yeah. And then eventually the whole machine would just break, and I did that to a few of them. Yeah. Like they just disintegrate, or they just don't. Like something breaks inside, and it's just impossible to fix. So I eventually had to get like a really heavy duty one that's made for like sail making, and like the sailing industry or leather work, and so then I got really into the idea of like extreme like structural integrity, and so I want the painting to be like needlessly like incredibly strong. So like the type of thread you use, how it's sewn together. And then like I would want like the canvas itself to tear before like the seam that you made would tear, just out of pride, like because I enjoyed that.
It wasn't like an archival thing at all? Thinking like, if someone ever has this, I want it to not fall apart on them.
Yeah, I think at first it started like that, and then as I got like as I got into it, like just the process of using a machine like that, it was like, how strong could I make this? You know, and it's just a challenge, and sometimes it's needless effort. Like there's not actually that much tension applied to that when something is stretched. Right, yeah. And so, but yeah, it's just something I enjoy. Kind of needless effort.
Yeah.
So
that came fairly recently, right?
Yeah, the last 3 years. Yeah.
So before that, you were still you were bringing things together, but it was more just like adhesive or something.
Or like kind of like a straight up collage style painting where you would have a continuous, piece of primed canvas and you were gluing things to it and stuff like that. And I still do that on occasion.
Yeah.
Or they were paintings that were just, paint on canvas and or charcoal drawings on canvas and things like that.
Well, I feel like it's working back, but when did abstraction sort of come out? Or, were you doing like abstract drawings as like a 10-year-old, or
no?
Did that come through a process of school and stuff?
Yeah, it came through school, really. I went into when I was a kid, I was drawing kind of representational things. So I was, drawing the things that kids draw. I was really obsessed with trying to draw the Porsche 911.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was really hard because I couldn't draw the curves accurately of the car. It's such a curvy car. And so then I got into drawing the Lamborghini Countach.
Oh, right.
Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, a little more angular.
And it was so angular, and I could draw it, and I thought it was really cool because I could draw that. And then I eventually got into in middle school. I got into drawing, those like perspective drawings that you learn how to do, were like vanishing points and all that stuff.
Yeah, the highway.
Yeah.
Into the horizon line.
And so I started drawing these like streetscape kind of things, buildings where, and I was fascinated with every single window opening has to like correlate to these vanishing points.
Right.
And I was really obsessive about it. And, and then eventually I found my way to college and,
did you, when you went to college, did you think art's something I want to study, or did you fall into that by just taking an art class at some point?
Yeah, that's how it happened. I went to school. Actually, I signed up to take I thought I was going to go to school for like psychology. And really just because I didn't know what to go to college for.
Well, how was that the subject?
I thought it sounded responsible, I guess.
And I was like, impressive.
Yeah, it was so smart. Yeah. And I was like interested. I was interested in the subject matter until I realized that it was like, it wasn't just like you kind of sitting around thinking about like theoretical ideas. It was like making experiments and like, crunching data and stuff. And I was like, this is boring.
Right.
And so, I took this one, the intro, like foundation kind of art class you have to take before you can take any of the other things or change to that major.
Yeah.
And the school I went to isn't an art school. It's just a university.
Right.
And, so yeah, I took that one foundation course. And the day I walked in there and smelled it and like, you hear like a miter saw running and it smells like chemicals and paint, and all the kids are different than all the other kids at college. It's all the weirdos that are there.
You caught the bug.
I was like, oh my God, this is heaven.
I'm
like,
home.
This is college?
There's always that point to where you feel like you're getting away with something. You're like, oh, you could do this?
Yeah.
This is something I'd actually enjoy doing.
Yeah.
As if like you have to hate what you're studying.
Right.
Or it's got to be a slog,
Right.
And
so,
you're like, oh, wow, this is great.
Yeah, that kind of... So, painting kind of started there. And, I had a lot of fun there.
Well, did you have like... influential teachers or visiting? Or
oh yeah.
How did it, transform from like these intro classes to like, oh, this is
sure.
This is something I want to do all the. And did your program? Because you got a BA, right? Was there like a fine arts program? It was more like liberal arts.
It's I guess it's a BA, and but it's like a liberal arts degree. But my degree is, I think it's studio art.
But that's what studio,
it is. Yeah, it's studio art.
Were there studios, like individual studios for people in the program, or was it more general area that?
Yeah, they're like group studios like that, where like this is the painting studio, and there's like 15 kids in there painting.
Just work in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and no, so that started, and I didn't know like what kind of art I was into, and so in the in that school you have to take, they make you take like everything.
Yeah.
You know, so you take like printmaking and photography and sculpture and painting and all that stuff, and then a whole bunch of art history, and I think that was the right angle for me, instead of like, you know, that when you go to a school and we're going to build a painter, and, you know, and they only do painting stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so I was kind of forced to do so many different types of things that I think it led into me kind of wanting to like mash all these things together into a painting.
Did you ever get to do ceramic?
Yeah, I did that too.
I mean, that's always fun.
Yeah.
Especially if you're breaking the rules. You're just like,
you know,
I can paint in three-dimensional space, kind of.
Yeah, ceramics was I thought I would really like ceramics, but I liked all of the things at school, but ceramics is the thing that totally defeated me, and I was like, I won't even like make eye contact with it anymore.
Oh, really? Yeah. You should pull like the skateboarding thing and try it again. Because there's a free. I was so defeated by it. Was it were you guys doing the wheel or something?
That's where it got me. Because I was like just hand building things, you know.
Yeah.
You know, before that, like coil building a pot, you know, and then we got into the wheel thing, and I was just so frustrated by the fact I couldn't do it.
That's a whole other beast.
Like, nope, not for me, man. And there's this zen that a lot of them have, you know, like the people that are really good at it. They're just really, really relaxed and like tuned into that thing. And I find a different, you know, I do that with, you know, making a painting now.
Right.
So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I just thought I could see some fun stuff you building in ceramics, but it would definitely be like hand building. I don't imagine it being like, you know, a vessel, like a fine vessel on the wheel. It was something a little more collaged in a way, you know.
I think maybe if I did that would be cool, like just this kind of clumps of stuff. Like just, this is terrible. I kind of like that though. Maybe I should.
Well, you know, like Betty Woodman, when she does those ceramics that are like more flat pieces that are kind of like merged together and they're painted on, and they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, a lot of painters or sculptors who use ceramics feel a little freer to break the rules and just use it for what they want, which I'm sure drives like hardcore ceramicists up the wall a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But I love that freedom of the material.
Sure, yeah.
Unencumbered by the history weighing down on you.
Right.
You know, I feel like every area has that, you know.
Yeah.
In painting, it's the same thing. It's like that history just weighing down. So you had some fun. You did some. I mean, what was the work like? Like right before you graduated, what were you doing?
I was just making straight paintings on you know, canvas like that, and that's where I started really experimenting with doing things in kind of modules, but like more like a triptych, but like where the panels were of different sizes, they were the same, and that kind of stuff, and or just things that weren't stretched, like just raw material on the wall.
Yeah.
And with sculpture got me really into performance art, and performance art started kind of influencing painting. And I had this great sculpture professor named Carol Garman, and she was somebody that became a pretty good influence on my painting, and I had this painting teacher that was this amazing painting teacher named Joe DeBella, and the two of them had kind of conflicting opinions sometimes about like how best to like tell me to move forward,
right?
You know, and I think that was very important, that I knew that they weren't in total agreement.
Yeah.
And
there's some gray area there you can navigate.
Yeah, and like let's try to do both of these at the same time.
Yeah.
And like, you know, make it really bad.
Get the devil on
or
one
whatever.
shoulder, angel on the other.
Yeah, yeah.
And work with both of these.
Yeah, and so they had this huge influence on me. The kind of the wrestling match of me trying to like satisfy everybody, and then be like, "What are you doing? Why are you trying to please everybody? Like, please yourself."
Yeah.
So. Yeah, that was fun.
That's natural, right? I feel like in school, when I got out of school, there was such a weight lifted, you know? I mean, you'll hear about it. It'd be like, well, it gets quiet when you get out of here. You know, when you're bitching and moaning about critiques, and you're like, I just want out of this place. And you're like, it's going to get real quiet for a long time.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're in school, you just want to, you're kind of, okay, I just need that time. And then you get out of school, and you're like, oh my God, I can just do whatever I want. All those voices aren't, I mean, they're in your head kind of, but, you know, they're not there yelling at you in the studio. So, you feel a little freedom.
Yeah.
So what was the plan once you got out of school? Just make work?
Just to make work, yeah. And I
Day job?
No, I had quit my day job while I was in school still.
Yeah.
And started selling my paintings,
Yeah.
and so it kind of just started working, like really early on.
Yeah.
And so I just kept going,
So like how did you first start getting your showing opportunities?
That first started with a guy that started collecting my work that owns a gallery.
Mm-hmm.
His name's Mark Van Wagner, and he owns a gallery called Marquee Projects in Bellport, Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
And he is a collector of mine, and we became good friends. And then he eventually opened a gallery and started representing me. And that was like my first, solo show.
Yeah.
And
you were able to just start making work full time and doing it.
Yeah. And he was really good, I just saw him last night. He's a good friend of mine. And he was really responsible about how like we handled all of the like stop thinking about money and like don't try to like accelerate this artist's pricing like rapid
Right,
and any of that stuff. Like he was really good kind of mentor about how like the business of art like is or whatever, how to think about it.
Fortunate to have someone like that. 'Cause
Yeah.
a lot of the people who step in at that moment are like, that's, I mean, they want you to do well, but they also want to make money or, like
Sure.
gallerists just want to be, you're next. I'll just sell a bunch of work and whatever, so that's kind of nice to have that. But I mean, in your case, I mean, it's, I teach, I have a lot of students, and they're always asking, people are always asking, like, well, do I have to go to New York or LA to, you know what I mean? And I think it's, important for people who don't, live in two cities, who the tons of people who are making work outside to sort of tell that story, and for people to understand, like, yeah, you don't have to be in one specific place to like get your work out there.
Nope.
And
I don't believe it.
You can have a big studio.
Yeah, you can afford it. And like I like that. I like the idea that when you get the cost of like your whole kind of operation really low, it changes how you behave and think about your work.
Right,
Yeah. And I think it's very important, especially if you're just trying to like get started, and gain some momentum.
Right. And I think historically, that's, to be totally honest, that's what it used to be like in New York or LA. Like you could find spaces that are Chicago that are, cheaper, not cheap, but I mean, now it's like impossible.
Right.
Like no matter where, I mean, you can, I guess maybe, Pittsburgh's a suburb of New York now.
Yeah.
But it's, you can kind of afford to get your feet wet and not feel like, well, I got to do this, I got to do that right away in order to just survive.
Right.
Which is the most important thing, is just being able to stay in the studio and making work.
Yeah.
Do you crank up the music in the studio? Or are you a silent worker?
Usually I'm wearing headphones, and it's weird. Sometimes I'm listening to music in the studio. Sometimes I'm listening to podcasts or the news, or whatever. And sometimes it's totally silent, and I can work for like huge amounts of time in total silence.
Right.
But yeah. Lately, I've been listening to a bunch of music that I remember from like things you would hear at like an 8th grade dance. Like when we were in 8th grade, or like Aerosmith.
Okay.
Aerosmith and like Motley Crue songs.
Poison.
Songs like that.
So more the rock end than the R&B end.
Yeah, like this music, and I don't even like it, but I like, it's like
Bon Jovi.
Yeah, stuff like that. It's not that it's so it's so kind of exaggerated, like in its like sincerity or something,
Yeah.
That it makes me laugh when I'm working, like, and then I think that kind of finds its way into your work.
Does it find
so
you have some good titles. Does it ever find its way in the title?
Sometimes, yeah, it can be something I overhear. The title thing started early on, like because I would hear my kids like through the floor in my house when my studio was in my basement.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, like my kids would be like arguing about something or whatever. And like I would overhear it and it would like, you know, make its way into the title of a work or start influencing how something looked.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Yeah.
Something that's seemingly abstract and nonsensical,
Mm-hmm.
but it's actually tied to personal experience.
Right. Yeah.
It's funny, that kind of like looking back at music, I've been doing that too, and I think maybe it comes with a certain age or something, but it's funny how specific the memories are tied to that kind of music.
Right.
But then listening to it now, it's weird.
Yeah.
You know, like listening to Bon Jovi then,
Mm-hmm.
it was Bon Jovi. I mean, it was a big deal, you
Yeah.
know, or Boyz II Men for that matter. Like that kind of stuff. But I've been doing, I used to go roller skating all the time.
Yeah.
And this place was like, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and it was like right in this not so great neighborhood, you know. It was a really seedy place, but I didn't know that then, you know. But just roller skating and the music was so specific. It's like that kind of funk, you know, like that 80s R&B funk stuff that was just so great to like roller skate to. And I listen to that now, and I feel this weird connection, but it's like a totally different thing.
Yeah.
But it takes you to a place, you know.
Yeah, maybe that's probably even when I brought up like an 8th grade dance.
Yeah.
You know, it's tied to memory.
That's a specific place.
Yeah.
The sock hops. Did you ever have those?
No.
We only had it when it rained out, but they would make everyone take their shoes off so it didn't get muddy in the gym, and they would call it a sock hop.
No, I never did that. I thought that was like in the 50s or something.
It was
like an old school thing.
That's when it originated.
Yeah.
I think that was just their excuse for keeping the gym clean, so they didn't have to clean it up afterwards.
Gotcha.
When you were growing up, was there a lot of music in the house?
Yeah, my dad had this awesome record collection in the house, and it was like, you know, don't jump by the record player, you know. So
that was the sacred area.
But you know, my dad had this great record collection, and that's what got me into playing music and playing guitar and all that stuff. So my dad had this, it kind of like all this great classic rock stuff, you know. And so he introduced me into, you know, like Santana and Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix and Bob Dylan and all that stuff. It was kind of always playing in our house. And
the
so,
staples on vinyl.
Creedence and all that.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up listening to that stuff, and it's still some of my favorite music.
Yeah, my dad, who was also in the military, I mean, he loved that stuff.
Yeah.
And old Motown, from his experience, you know, he loved Motown and then all that classic rock stuff. But I remember, like when you said Creedence, like what was the solo? Remember that song "Center Field" by John Fogerty? I think it was called.
No, I don't know that.
It was about baseball or something. It was when he went solo. But my dad used to play that to me endlessly. You know what I mean? But I think that passion for music, seeing that when you're young, whether it's whatever it is, something creative, is like important. You know, it's kind of I can be really into something.
Right.
I always feel bad for people who maybe grow up and there's no intensity like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little crazy, but it kind of is crazy to just spend your life just working in a box.
Sure. Yeah.
Making pictures.
Yeah. When I first started playing guitar, it was like I was just, you know, learning how these Jimi Hendrix riffs and how to play Santana stuff. And
did you do it all by ear?
Yeah.
Did you take lessons?
I took lessons for like a month. I think it was a month or 2 months, and it was like, you know, I'd go every weekend, and this guy would teach me stuff, and just to really like the basics and chords and chord progressions, and then like the basic, like, you know, like the pentatonic scale on a guitar, and then
2 months did it though.
Yeah, I know I'm an only child, so I didn't have anything else to do. So I was just constantly by myself in my room, playing my guitar. And so I eventually, just started being able to replicate what I was hearing.
Yeah, you know, playing by ear.
Yeah.
Well, did your parents play music too?
My mom is like a self-taught piano player. My mom, she can play piano, but I don't believe she can read sheet music. Yeah. So she can hear something and like replicate it on the piano. Yeah, she's really good.
Well, that's like true ear for music talent sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
I feel like people have an ear for it if they actually sat down and had the ability to study or the time or whatever. They could probably do well. Did you have a piano growing up in the house?
Yeah, we did. I didn't know how to play it though. I never like, it's weird. I never really got into it or whatever. Like maybe it wasn't cool to me or something. Like
just that big thing over there.
Yeah.
It's like taking up space.
Right. Or it didn't have like distortion,
right.
You know, like stuff like that.
Super cool. I guess. Well, you could have ran the distortion pedal through it somehow.
I bet you could. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, because synthesizers back then were... Did you have any of those growing up?
No.
I had one of those Casio SK1s.
Oh, yeah?
The little white one where you could sample. You could
that's
sample
cool.
like 2 seconds. But you could sample it and then play all this stuff. And I remember that thing being like...
You mean where it would like loop that and repeat it?
No, like if I just... we would record ourselves burping or farting or whatever. Of course it evolved.
That's awesome.
Right? What else were we going to do?
Oh, yeah. It's exactly what my kids would be doing if they had that. They'd be like, let's record ourselves farting.
Yeah, you just like burp into it, and then you could play like, Axel F by burping. It would be like you just hit the notes and it samples the note.
Okay.
And plays that in the key.
I gotcha.
But at that point, that was like amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now my son's got like, these music programs and like MIDI interfaces and stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, if we had that. I remember, I was just thinking about this the other day, about the first band I was in high school. We had to go to a studio that I'm sure was pretty crappy. You know what I mean? And these guys didn't really know what they were doing. But we drove like 45 minutes away to a studio to record like a demo, which was probably like 4 songs.
Yeah.
And it probably was a lot of money.
Did you get that little like DAT tape? Remember those things?
Yeah,
they would record on your stuff onto?
I think someone did. I mean, I ended up getting like, you wanted it right away. You were like, oh, that's our music, and it would take like a couple of days to get the cassette tape. But I'm sure like one of the guys, the head guys in the band or something, got that down.
Yeah.
But we would pay all that money, and like back then, now you can do everything.
You can do it in your closet now.
Yeah. You don't have to buy any of that stuff. It's pretty amazing.
Lots of people record things in closets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do a podcast intro in the closet.
Like us right now in the closet.
You're not supposed to. No, this is a huge recording studio. It'd be funny if we were actually in
this tiny closet.
2 square foot closet. There's just one mic hanging in between us.
Yeah.
So, the other thing I was thinking about too, in relation to the difference between sharing music, is like sharing work. And like, do you think, like, obviously you're involved in like online, like social media and stuff, and getting the work out there through that platform, right? Is that something that you found is like really great for you as far as building community, or is it a pain, or like? Oh yeah,
like Instagram is huge, man. I mean, it's extremely effective tool to use to help you communicate with other artists, or for the art world to know you exist, but I do think it's kind of a double-edged sword, and I think you need to be careful, like trying to satisfy it, and I'm gonna make this decision in a painting or use this color or whatever because this is gonna get a bunch of likes.
Oh really?
You got to be really careful with that. I mean that's kind of an obvious statement, but like I think it is something that I think about, and I make sure that I'm not kind of responding to that.
Yeah, like the etiquette or strategy of like how things look on a 2-inch by 2-inch screen. That's tricky.
Yeah,
I mean, because it's one thing if you're, I'm going to post this at this time as opposed to that time, but then there's some people who are just making work in general that's like for being reproduced.
Yeah,
like if you go to an art fair and you're like, yep, that's the piece that people are really trying, like that artist's trying to make something that everyone will just photograph.
Yeah. And
that can be troubling if you're just reorganizing your whole artistic practice over, how things look in reproduction.
It actually, I think also in an unexpected way for me, at least, and it was helpful for me in my thinking about making art. My paintings are really physical, sewn together. There's like, they appeal to like the sense of touch, like you want to touch it. And I like that. And I don't, I tell people at my shows, like, you can touch it. I don't care, but, I'm generally, working in that manner a lot with very, very physical objects. But, in a weird way, I realized that you see a lot of things online now, and everybody's phone is like, this massive, like high definition, like
the camera
OLED screen or whatever, right? So you're looking at this great like backlit display, and it makes everything look really great, right? And now artists are getting better and better and better, like on kind of, I guess, on average at photographing their work really well. And so you're kind of used to seeing really well photographed images, and then you'll go to a show, and sometimes, especially with paintings that are just like a straight up, a formalist painting, paint on canvas.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but like sometimes when you go and see that at a show in person, the only kind of difference between what you saw on your cell phone and what's in front of you is just scale.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And it's so accurately photographed, and it really does look the way it looks. And now the only difference is just scale. Yeah. And so I think in a roundabout way, it made me want to make my work more physical, like that. So I gained an actual kind of benefit other than like popularity from like Instagram or from the internet. Like it made me want to make very tactile work.
Yeah. Like when you see this in person, you're going to feel it.
Yeah, there's another layer to it. That's like you're rewarded for going and seeing it in person,
Which is so important.
Yeah.
The moment it becomes like more important, not in reality, is kind of like troubling.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel that, well, I don't know. I kind of feel that way about live music, It's always a bummer if you go see a show and it's like a dude on a laptop and there's just nothing really,
Yeah.
Or if you go see... Sometimes you even get bands that they're doing a lot of electronic stuff, but then when they play, they do a live band, but it just doesn't feel like the energy is not there.
Yeah.
And you really want the live experience to be something like that's the core of it.
And sometimes the recording or the device you're listening to a recording on or whatever, if you're listening to some guy play guitar or whatever, right? You might not hear that like finger squeak on the strings. That's really cool and physical, and when you go see it live, you get the full experience.
Definitely. It's like what you gain in the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's like going to see a Minor Threat show.
Yeah.
Although I never saw Minor Threat, but Fugazi.
No, I never did.
It was.
Yeah.
There's nothing like seeing the show.
Yeah.
I mean, just the banter in between songs, but then like, just when the picks dropped or like when the amp cuts out for a second and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's the real stuff.
Or when somebody like stomps like in the band, like on the floor, and you feel it in the room, and there's like a little small bar, you're listening to them, and you're like, wow.
Yeah, it's visceral.
It's very visceral. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And I guess at this point too, because people experience so much of things in the simulacra, that becomes even more fetishized or important.
Right.
Or I don't know, maybe it's not more important, but it's just different, to see that stuff. So, but people are going to go see your work, and it's going to be a totally different experience, which is really great. And the cool thing is there's going to, ideally through, communication, you get more people to see the work, which is kind of what we all want to do.
Sure. Yeah.
We just want the more people to see it, the better.
That's
the idea.
That's kind of the idea.
Yeah. But, so what are you going to do after this show? This show's up how long? Do you want to just tell people?
Yeah. This show's up from today, January 31st, to March 14th at Monica King Contemporary.
That's a good run.
Yeah.
Some good amount of time for people to check it out.
Yeah. That's over in Tribeca.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's on which... Do you know what street it's on?
Yeah, it's on Lispenards.
Right.
Lispenards, 39 Lispenard Street. It's just down the street from Canada, where they moved. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not too far from the old knitting factory.
Yeah.
And all those old places to see live music.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, and do you have anything else going on, or you're going to take a little time? Are you taking a time after a show, guy?
No, I kind of
back at it.
Yeah, like I work a lot, so like I'm gonna get back to my studio, and I gotta pack it up and move to the new place, which is just literally at the top of the hill. My studio's at the bottom of the hill now, so I got to do that when I get back. But I've got several things that are in the works that are kind of in the process of being completed that I'm excited about for the future.
Yeah,
and yeah.
And do you, as a young person, did some traveling? Are you really into travel?
Yeah.
You like going all over? I would imagine you've had opportunities to travel.
Well, yeah.
Like you went to Berlin, right? Did you go to that for that? Didn't you have a show in Berlin?
Yeah. So I did a residency in Madrid, Spain, and then I did a residency in Berlin as well, and then I had a show in Seoul, South Korea,
Nice.
and then in Brussels. So yeah, the last few years I've been traveling a lot. Yeah.
It's great, right?
Yeah.
Well, I would imagine too. It's just so much. We just went to Barcelona over Thanksgiving, and like the texture, everything's so different, and it's so fun to see all that stuff.
Yeah.
I just love traveling.
Yeah, it's really important for you, I think, too. I found when I was in Madrid, it was the first time I realized this, but like when I was like, if I'm in New York or something and I look at like graffiti tags and stuff like that on the wall, I'm generally not that interested in it, because most graffiti that I see are street art or murals and that kind of stuff. I'm just never interested in it, and but a lot of times it's because I'm reading like the text that's in it, and
right.
It's like this narrative or some guy's name that he signed or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of it's genuinely funny.
Right.
But there was this guy a few years ago that I used to see when I would drive into the city. I think his name was Rambo, and it would just say Rambo like over the highway, and it was so cool, man. Yeah, I loved that. But they're
all triangles, large straight lines. Right?
Yeah. But in most cases, when I would see graffiti in the United States, I was just kind of not interested in it. But I think it's because I was reading it, and when I would look at it in a foreign country and it's written in their language, I would kind of just see it for like how it's composed and organized, and it gave me ideas for paintings, from looking at how they would organize space rather than trying to like, by default you can't not read something if you
it turns you into a formalist.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
I love that with music, because if I'm listening to music in another language, I can just kind of hear it, in a way. And then you pick up, or when you're traveling and you just listen to people talk, and you can't understand language, but you get the energy. Like you could pick up on the feel of the conversation more, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta get out of your routine to see things differently.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for coming over.
Yeah, man.
Good luck with the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to see it.
Cool.
And thanks a lot.
All right.
Many thanks to Taylor Anton White. Go check out his show at Monica King Contemporary in Tribeca called Free Hot Dog PDF. It's up through March 14th. And many thanks to Evan Marion for the intro-outro music, Michael Lovett for the introduction, Lullatone, Jacob 2-2, and the others who have supplied music to the podcast. You can check out more images at Sound and Vision Podcast on Instagram, at Alfred Studio on Instagram for my work, brianalfred.net, soundandvisionpodcast.com on the internet. Many thanks to our first Patreon patron, Samantha. And if you would like to join her in supporting the podcast, go to patreon.com/soundandvisionpodcast. Many thanks to Golden Artist Colors for their long-standing support of our podcast. Check out future podcasts coming up in the weeks. We got some really great guests coming up. Thanks a lot for your support. Go over to iTunes and leave a rating and a review. Subscribe to the podcast if you can. Head over to Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, all the other platforms where it is offered. There's also now a YouTube channel for the podcast, which for now is just posting podcasts, and sometimes those will hit a little bit sooner than the podcasts hit on the other services. And also in the future, I'm going to add some additional content, video content on the YouTube channel. So make sure you go over to YouTube and subscribe. It is easiest to get there through the link in the bio in Instagram. Thanks so much for your support. Stay tuned.